This is Duke University.
Our first keynote is Steve Knox. So Steve Knox is I would say a rock star in the marketing arena.
Wow.
He's a veteran at Procter & Gamble, 32 years if I'm correct, and he started Procter & Gamble's Tremor group and is the CEO of Tremor. And it's Procter & Gamble's word of mouth marketing organization. And so I will let you take it from there because I could ramble on and on about what you've done and your success. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. The hangover factor doesn't look that bad. You're down last night going, wow, I wonder if anybody will be conscious after Monday night's game. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the pollen. That was a nice start this morning as I went out and went, I can't see my arm. As mentioned, when I'm walking past the microphones, let me know because I tend to wander. My name is Steve Knox. I run a business inside of P&G called Tremor, which you've never heard of before. I'll tell you a little bit about the business, a little bit about me, et cetera, et cetera. But what I want to do here this morning is talk for 20 minutes or so, turn it over, answer questions. I'm here for you guys. And what did we learn? What are the things we've done, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully we can spark the conversation of what's it like to be an intrapreneur. And it's very different. It's very different. I applaud you guys because not many people talk about this stuff. So the title of this talk is doing something small inside of something big. So let me give you some background. I mentioned before, 32 years with Procter & Gamble, whereas my son, who's in the private equity field, said, Dad, as a role model, you suck. All right, what did I do now? Because nobody spends 32 years with one company. And it's true, except at P&G. Everybody, you talk to P&G, they're 25 years, they're 28 years. So it's a company that is a promote from within company, so you tend to have that. It is a company that creates a lot of loyalty. It's the most values-driven company I know of. So that's my political announcement. The reason I'm still 32 years with P&G is because I get to go do really interesting work like this, get to do really interesting and innovative and different kinds of things inside a high values-driven company. Bob McDonald, who's our new CEO, I guess was recently down here speaking, and I think he talked about that if he had an opportunity. Bob, one of the gentlemen of the business world. $83 billion consumer products company. We make a lot of stuff that's in your house, everything from shampoos to tampons to diapers to beauty products. We are a $83 billion sales company, of which $82.9 billion are selling products. And I'm selling a marketing service. And so my business is called Tremor, which is the name of the business. The consumer-facing brand is called Vocal Point. It is a word-of-mouth marketing business. When we do research, we find that the most powerful form of marketing is an advocacy message from a trusted friend. There's nothing more powerful. There's no television ad, there's no print ad that's more powerful than a friend saying to you, I just got a new Prius. This is the best car I've ever had. Or, oh my God, I just tried the new Pampers. They're the best diaper for my baby. And so we've all known that. And we decided to go figure out how to go crack the code on that. And we created a business around it. Or as I like to say, we are a company that is perfectly designed to support an $82 billion consumer products company and terribly designed to support a small little marketing services company. That's one of the key things you're going to hear through this about entrepreneurship. Intrapreneurship is systems. So if you take that first message away, it's systems, 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 because they will buck you every single time, and it's one of the obstacles you have to learn to overcome. We started this business back in 2000. The name Tremor came from, we started the business as a teen business. I've since discontinued the teen business. It's totally today a mom's business, a women's business actually. And again, the consumer-facing name is Vocal Point. If there are any young moms in the room, or tell your mom at home, join Vocal Point. It doesn't cost you anything, really interesting information. This is me. The things to take away on this is, one, I'm really old. Two, I had this really weird career. It's been perfectly designed to do something strange. I've had this job of doing really, really normal P&G jobs. I was in our laundry business when I started back in 1977, before all of you were born. Our market shares in the laundry business exceed 50%. And I went from that to, in early 1980s, we bought a soft drink business. And most of you are going, really? Procter soft drinks? But we bought the Orange Crush, Hires Root Beer, and Sundrop company. And I went and joined that, where our market shares were measured after the decimal point. And so I went from this huge, massive thing to this really, really weird entrepreneurial, dealing with bottlers kind of business, and was in that business for a number of years. And then I went into our food and beverage business, or as the Wall Street Journal used to call it, the beleaguered food and beverage business. Very tough business, low margin, and learned a lot there. And then it was time to go do something weird again. And at the time, we hadn't done the one part of our organization that wasn't globalized was our selling organization. And so myself and another guy led the globalization of our sales efforts. So I got to travel all over the world. And then it was time, and that got too normal. It was time to do something weird, and we started Tremor. So again, I've had this career of doing really normal, really weird, not really normal. And the takeaway from that, this isn't about me, but this is about you guys as you think about this. The takeaway from it is every job you've had prior preps you for the job you currently have. And extract from it the stuff that you learned that you can go apply. What can you learn from other people? I know in running the business I currently do, we're about a 50-person business, and I find myself quoting things that my old boss used to tell me. And this guy I didn't even like, but I found out that he was teaching me. He was teaching me. I didn't know it. I didn't know it until much later. And by the way, in an act, if that ever happens to you, call that person back up. You wouldn't believe the reception you get to say, thank you. And this guy who since retired. So what's the business and why? If you look at the top half of this, that's a purchase funnel. And I don't care what business you're in. I don't care if you're selling tampons, automobiles, healthcare products, to someone I met earlier today. There's a purchase funnel for your customer. And it starts with some kind of category interest. It moves to brand awareness, brand consideration. And then we declare victory at brand purchase. And this is how marketing has been run for 100 years, thinking about the brand purchase funnel. The new world of marketing is changing. And the success metric is no longer, did I sell you something? But rather it's, did I create an advocate from you? Because advocacy begets more advocacy. And if you want to see this at work, look at Apple today. Many of you, who has got an Apple? Anybody buy an iPad, by the way? I touched one yesterday. So the guy was in the airport, I turned around and said, can I touch it? By the way, you should never say that in airports. But if you want to see this at play, Apple gets to spend one hell of a lot less money on marketing because they've created advocacy. And so If you say advocacy is the new metric of marketing, then how would your marketing change if that becomes the end state? Word of mouth advocacy became the end state. So this is great theory. This is the kind of stuff you get taught here. And the problem is when you bring it to the real world, you go, okay, this is what we want, advertising community, marketing community, and you get blank stares. And you get blank stares. And so why did we start this business? We started this business because nobody else was fulfilling the need. And as it turns out, we did this to support Procter brands. Turns out there's actually a business around it, that other companies wanted the same thing. So there's lesson number 2 for you right there. How did this start? It didn't start because I sat around and said, ooh, I've got this brilliant idea. You sat around and you said, what were the needs of the core business, the core Procter & Gamble business? And the needs of the core Procter business was right there. How do we create brand advocates? How do you create word of mouth, so advocacy? And there was nobody else fulfilling that. If I had brought a different idea to the company that was too far off, it would have been rejected. So my number 2 lesson for you in entrepreneurship is make sure the idea that you're bringing is somehow attached to the core. If it's too far removed from the core, it will tend to get rejected. That's my experience. And I want to emphasize everything I'm talking about is my experience. These are absolutes, these are our lessons that we've learned. How does the business work? Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just give you some background. Anybody here with The Tipping Point? Malcolm Gladwell's right? Wonderful, wonderful book. Really, really, really bad science. It just is. Gladwell's a social scientist. He's a fantastic writer. Those were his observations. Turns out the science of word of mouth, the technical name for it is called diffusion. The ultimate book on this is The Diffusion of Innovation. This is an 800-page book summarized on one slide. Essentially what you've got here is a product adoption curve. Lots of names for them. Gladwell calls them mavens. We call them innovators. Then there's early adopters. Lots of people chase those. What we uncovered was a group of consumers we called connectors, which is the blue curve. Connectors are simply people who have social networks larger than normal. About 10 or 15% of you in this room are connectors. And connectors give you access into larger social networks. We identified the psychological makeups of these connectors, then we went out to find them. Today I have found 500,000 women connectors in the United States that are actually part of Vocal Point, the name of the business. That's the first principle of the message. The second principle is the message that creates word of mouth is always different than the advertising message. We phrase that as there's a message that the consumer wants to hear. That's typically your advertising message, and there's a message the consumer wants to share with their friends. 100% of the time, those are different messages. What we've invested in is in cognitive psychology. We spent a lot of time in cognitive psychology to understand why people talk. Why is this the case? It's rooted in a cognitive concept called schema disruption. To illustrate it to you very quickly, January a year ago, a plane landed in the Hudson. We all remember this. We still talk about it today. 3 weeks after that, a plane crashed in Buffalo, New York. 50 people died. It was far more tragic. If you remember it, it's one thing. I guarantee you none of you are still talking about it. Yet you'll still talk about the miracle of the Hudson. The reason for that is called schema disruption. The plane landing in the Hudson interrupted your schemas. The schema we have is planes crash, people die. That's a mental model that we have. In Buffalo, plane crash, people died. It's tragic. We feel very sad for it, but it matched our schema. The schema of a plane in the Hudson, a plane in the water, is so disruptive that we still talk about it. That just illustrates how schema disruptions work in real life. we use that principle in marketing to uncover what are the schemas that are at play on a brand and be able to create the disruption to the schema that creates word of mouth. We find that, we then place it in front of those 500,000 moms, and we get magic. We just absolutely get magic in the market. It is a truly innovative business model. So we can't find anybody else who does this. Nobody. And even 10 years later, there are a bunch of startups that try to imitate us, but there's nobody that brings the scale or the science that we at Procter are bringing to this world. So we continue to run the business because it's still valuable to our brands, it's still valuable to the core of the business, and until somebody can come and give us a better mousetrap, we're going to continue to run the business this way. All right. Oh, just one last quick thing. What I'm not talking about here is buzz marketing. This is my legacy that I'm going to leave as I'm the old guy, is to dissuade all of you from ever using the term buzz marketing. Buzz marketing is a waste of money. We describe this work as having advocacy and amplification. Advocacy, brands that live up here, high advocacy, low amplification. Think Crest White Strips. You know the brand? Right? We make that. That's a brand that's got very, very high advocacy, low amplification. It's real hard to walk in the cocktail party going, "CIT?" You could use some Crest White Strips. It's got an amplification problem. This down here is the danger zone. High amplification, low advocacy. This is buzz marketing. And the marketing world is replete with examples of this. My favorite example of all time is the Go Elf Yourself campaign. Do we know it?
Yep.
You got a Christmas card, an email, picture attached, little elf dancing across the screen. To this day, the single most successful viral campaign on the web. 127 million elves were created and distributed. 127 million consumers engaged with this. What's the brand?
Office Max.
What did you say? I heard Jib Jab.
Yeah.
They're the producer. Does anybody know the brand?
Isn't it Office Max company?
What is it?
Is it Office Max?
Office
Isn't it Office Max?
Max?
Yeah.
Yes, congratulations. You're one of the few people to ever get that right. Most people say Staples. They even attribute it to their competitor. And the data on this is 127 million elves distributed at Christmas time as their same-store sales declined 9.6%. Amplification without advocacy is a waste of money. Take that, for those of you who want to go into marketing, take that one away. Amplification without advocacy. The only people that win there are your agencies. And really, you're not so much in the business of supporting them. All right, so what did we learn and what can you guys take away in this entrepreneurship? What are the lessons? And there are 8 of them. The first is find a business attached to the core that has a capability that isn't serviced by somebody else. That's what we learned. There was a need at the core of the business. There was not a service offering available out there. And by being attached to that, you have an idea that management says, I'm willing to go fund. The second is purpose-driven strategies. That's a core strategy for Procter. And as we look at our business, we have to be aligned to that. So this is very similar in that I said where it's being attached to the core. You have to be attached to the core strategy of the parent company. Procter is all about serving the consumer. 100%. Every Procter & Gamble person can tell you that the purpose of Procter & Gamble, the purpose is not to make money. The purpose is to touch lives and improve lives. And every P&G that's drilled into us, it's built into our very core. Profit is an outcome of doing that. It's an outcome. But we are instilled by, we are trying to touch lives and improve life, just that smallest little amount each day. Yes, there needs to be a financial return. In our business, we measure our financial return different, which is another great lesson. Financial return doesn't always have to be a P&L or a return on assets. In this case, we measure our return by what value do we bring to the mothership, the parent brands, to Olay and to Pampers, and how much sales gain do they get from that? I actually run the business to zero. I know that seems very strange, but I run it to zero. I try to run the business to break even. Because why would I charge P&G brands a profit? Doesn't make any sense. And so all I do is all profit I make by selling externally, I roll into cheaper prices to P&G brands and run the business to break even. By the way, don't let anybody fool you. Running the business break even is really hard. It's actually much easier to make a profit than it is to run it exactly at break even. And then the other reason why we started this is the heritage of marketing innovation. P&G has a long, long history of leading marketing. We're generally regarded, trying to put ego aside, as the best marketers in the world. Everything from, we're the first people to have print ads, we're the first people to have television ads, radio ads, we invented the soap opera. So it's all part of our heritage. I did get into this, so now let me tell you what we learned. Point number one, it's really hard. Being an intrapreneur is really, really hard work. It requires support from the very top. Leadership here is key. If you do not have alignment at the very top, and I'm talking in my company at the CEO level of P&G, these things tend to fail. So if you think you've done enough work aligning senior management, do more. You can't get enough of them because they will be your protector. And you need a protector. You are an embryo and you need a protector. Point two, different management is necessary at different points in the life cycle of the business. And this is one that isn't ever taught. I didn't start this business. A woman by the name of Claudia Kachka started this business. And she is a visionary. She later became the head of design for P&G. And she is an absolute visionary. And she had a vision for what this thing could be. And she brought the vision to life by aligning it with senior management. Ask her to go run the business, no capability, none. We had 47 people in the business and no revenue. We didn't even have a product, and yet she hired 47 people. That's not very operational. Then there's someone who needs to take the vision and turn it into an actual business process. That's a different skill set. You need a different person at that time. The likelihood that the visionary and the business process person is the same person is small. There are two different skill sets. The brain works in two different ways. One's not right, one's not wrong. They just work different. And this one, to me, feels the same lesson in entrepreneurship, too, is visionaries and then turning them into a business process and then eventually into scale tends to be very, very different skill sets. It's extremely rare that you find that individual that can do it all. And so one of the big lessons we have is know where you are in the life cycle of the business and bring leadership in at that point to go either to bring it into business process or into scale. Point three, leverage everything. Leverage everything you possibly can. The advantage for an intrapreneur, in my case, is working for an $83 billion company. So I'm leveraging that reputation. I'm leveraging the reputation of Procter, of our marketing innovation when I'm out talking to clients. I'm leveraging our systems. I'm leveraging the balance sheet. I've got the complete flexibility to offer terms to our clients because the balance sheet of Procter is so healthy. I leverage our HR systems. 4, pick your battles. Corporate systems are not well aligned to small ventures. And so you will have friction every single day. I could literally spend 8 hours of every day just battling systems, whether they're HR systems or financial systems or SAP or any of the systems that are in place. Pick your battles. Sometimes you just have to say, I wouldn't choose this. This isn't right for my business, but I'm going to endure this because I'm going to leverage everything else. Pick your battles. Being different, therefore, is okay. You can choose something different. Just know why you're choosing it. Don't fight it just because you want to be different. Choose your battles. You must isolate the business at the start. You can't attach it to a business unit. The corporate T cells attack. Big corporations are not unlike our human body. There are cells that don't like foreign things. And trust me, a business like mine is foreign. And the CFO is sitting up in the C-suite with the CEO going, uh-huh, and what about these guys? There's 50 people we could get rid of. They don't like it. And so you have to isolate to start, or it will not grow. And then equally as important, you must have a plan to integrate back in. Because if it always sits out, it will never fulfill itself. It'll always be an appendage. It'll always be something bolted on. When you build a business plan, think about those 2 points. When am I going to integrate it back in? How am I going to integrate it back in? What we tend to do is say, we're going to build our business plan and we're going to only worry about the startup phase. Only going to worry about the startup phase. Build the business plan with an active thought of how am I going to integrate it back in. 7th, be flexible in the model. When you're starting something new, our experience is whatever you thought it was going to be, you were wrong. The model changes. The model changes. Where we are today doesn't resemble the vision of how we are going to run the business. The output's still the same, brand advocacy, but the how of it needed to be incredibly flexible. And you've got to learn to adapt. Test and learn, and don't forget to fail. Again, no one likes to talk about this, but I told you before, we invest a lot of money in cognitive psychology. As human beings, we learn more from failure than we do from success. Don't forget to fail. Just fail small. Fail small. And if you do that, your adaptability curve starts to accelerate. You build a culture of test, learn, adapt, test, learn, adapt, test, learn, adapt, and then you get an absolute curve that spirals upward, and that's healthy for your business. Pay attention to the star. This one, I know you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, so let me show you the star. In our company, this is called the organizational performance model, and it is how we design all businesses. And you can start at any point in here, but let's just start at current results. And you say, let's do an analysis of what are we currently getting in the marketplace. What do we want? What kind of results do we want? Where's the step change difference? What's the culture that you'd have to have in order to have that result? And then what's the new business plan, right? Pretty logical. But the star that's in the middle is called the Galbraith star. And the star says there are 6 things. Structure, rewards, information data, decision making, tasks, and people. And the key takeaway on the star, if you touch one, you touch them all. And we all don't like this. Instead, what we like to do is say, let's go reorganize the business. Let's create a new org structure. Or let's put a new decision-making system in place. Or let's change the people. Or let's change a reward and recognition system. You touch one, you touch them all. And this is one of the most valuable things I can leave you with as I conclude my talk here, is pay attention to the star. Because your business is being run by it. And if you aren't paying attention, it will unravel on you so fast, it'll make your head spin. The star becomes what you should wake up in the morning thinking about on the operational aspect of your business. This isn't strategy, this is the operational aspect of your business. So, 10 years of doing this, that's what I learned, but I'm a slow learner. So why don't I open it up, and what questions can I answer to you guys?
I guess, you mentioned a minute ago about how difficult it is, you have to be very flexible. Is there any point in your career that you have not been as flexible with management? I know you guys have advocacy from the high end, but is there any point you guys have drawn a line in the sand and said we have to do it this way? Or is that something you can never do or shouldn't do?
I hate absolutes like that. There have been points where we said we have to do something that violated what the mothership wanted. So I mentioned before, 33 years with P&G, and everybody's a promote from within. We're a promote from within company. So we don't tend to hire people from the outside. It's our single greatest strength and our single greatest liability. And to start this, I needed to hire senior people from the outside. And that was a battle. That was a battle, because I'm going to be bringing in people at director level from the outside, and the company hates it, just hates it. But I couldn't be flexible on that one because I couldn't run the business. I didn't have the talent set inside of P&G. Oh, by the way, then the time came for me to integrate it back in the company, and now I have these people, and what do I have to do on that? And so I couldn't be inflexible about saying, how do I now start to bring Proctor people in? So yes, there are times you have to draw a line in the sand and say, the survival of the business is dependent upon this decision. That's the pick your battles lesson. And then, oh, by the way, there comes a time when you have to say, I'm willing to now give that one up because we passed that point. So I don't know if that helped you. Knowing when to pick that battle frankly, it's one of the hardest parts. Knowing when to pick that battle. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the culture and how that enabled you and challenged you? I'm thinking, things like search and re-imply, in the P&G culture, attitudes towards risk as an entrepreneur in a large company like that.
Yeah, that was you articulated two elements of our culture that work at cross purposes for a business like mine. So search and reapply is part of our culture, which is you don't have to invent everything here. We're this company, this big, huge global company, search around the world for the best ideas and reapply them. That's part of our culture. So that works great. Our risk profile is we're not a high-risk company, and I'm going into a high-risk venture, and that doesn't work right. And so I had contrasting cultural issues here. It's why part of the reason I had to go to the outside to get some people in, because I didn't have people with the risk profile that were willing to come in to go start something. Most Proctor people don't have that level of risk profile. To do something like this is not healthy for your career. It's just not. You tend to go do this, and people look and say, "Yeah, but all right, show me what you did on Tide or on Pampers," which is our mainline businesses. You get into a business like this because you really get your jollies out of doing something like that. So the culture of the mothership both worked for me and both worked against me. Be cognizant of it. There's the learning. Be cognizant of where the culture works for you and where it works against you. Yes?
Is Tremor a legal entity or just a business unit within P&G?
Just a business unit inside of P&G. So we're a brand like any other brand inside of P&G.
will it be difficult to attract some employees because you basically cannot provide options or some other incentives, right?
It was at the beginning. It's not hard now, partly because we've built a reputation as a fun place to work, where you can take a lot more risk. Partly because the young people that are coming into P&G there's a different cultural mindset of young people that are coming to P&G. You folks are different than I was when I was your age. And they're demanding more of this kind of experience. And so we don't fight that battle today, but if you had asked me that question six years ago, I would have given you a different answer. Yes?
I'm wondering more about the competition side. So what does prevent the competition side of your business? So what does prevent marketing and PR group to develop this business and sell it, sell services to Procter & Gamble, maybe at lower cost since they can do economies of scale by selling to deeper? And connected to this question, was there any point in which at the very early startup of this company you thought about, okay, this could be a serious threat for this business, like this potential competition for us?
Sure. So to answer your first question, we're always on the look to say, is there somebody else who's providing this service better? Now you need to do that in any business, right? Because you've got to keep your product fresh. But I also have another look at it, which is, this isn't core to P&G. This isn't selling, we're a consumer products company. And so if there is somebody else who actually is doing it better, I have an obligation to go back to the mothership and say, we need to think about this. We need to think about a new business strategy for this. I look and say that the exit strategy, those of you who are entrepreneurs or selling a business, we all have exit strategies. My exit strategies is, the question I ask is slightly different, which is, how do I extract the most value for P&G at any given point in time? And that could be by continuing to run this business and driving Tide and Olay and driving their businesses. Or it could be, I recommend I sell this business. And that's the best way for Procter to extract it. If I thought the learning curve was flattening, which it's not, it's still continuing to accelerate because we're really on such cutting edge market. But if I thought the learning curve was flattening, I'd be making a recommendation to the company. What we should do is sell this to somebody who wants to buy it, pay us a lot of cash, and then buy the service back. We still get the service, you'd still put some exclusivity clause in it, so you still have it, and somebody else run it. That's how I would think about an exit strategy inside a big company like this. Yes?
What surprised you pleasantly during this process?
The learning. Have been stunned. There's no other word for it, but I have been stunned by how entrenched the marketing model, the traditional marketing model is. And how with not a lot of effort, you suddenly broke into white space that was just wide open. And that's why the learning curve isn't flattening. The marketing model is so tightly wound up, and everything about it, systems, processes, measures, agencies, clients, media, they're all so tightly wound up together that they actually can't see that there's this whole new world out there. And it surprised me, and continues to surprise me, how easy it was to break into white space that nobody's occupying, where there's just massive new learning. I would never in a million years have predicted that. Yes?
So you talked about failure and how you can learn a lot. You learn more from your failures than you do from your success, but how would you rationalize a failure you had to the people up top if you're doing entrepreneurship?
So the question, if you didn't hear it, was how do you rationalize failure to the people at the top? Because I failed small. I mean, there will come a time in your career, they don't happen very often, where you bet the business. I mean, you're literally putting them all in, all chips in. Don't make that a regular bet. You'll tend to lose. If you go to Las Vegas or you play Texas Hold'em poker, really you don't put them all in very often. So there may be once or twice in your career where you bet the company. But what you do is you bet a lot of small bets, and you fail in a bunch of them. And in our culture, that's perfectly okay. Perfectly okay, as long as you can say, and so here's what we learned. And it's the so here's what you learn is the most important part of failure. Now, if I bet the company and lose, I have a much harder time explaining that to management because I don't have anything left anymore. All my chips are gone. So make sure you know when you're placing the bet. Yes?
Among your internal clients, what's the profile of, I mean, sure you have some evangelists, people that are believers more than others. What is their profile?
They tend to be much more digitally connected than the average Proctor marketing person. They tend to have a higher risk profile, more willingness to go try different things. And they tend to be struggling with the traditional marketing model. So brands that are continuing to grow their business using traditional means kind of look and go, why do I need you?
So the weaker, sort of an impolite way of saying it would be the weaker businesses in some cases?
Wow. Yes. Or as we like to say, we love the number 2 player in the category.
Yeah.
Because the number 1 player looks and says, I'm happy. My business is growing. I got share leadership. And whether that's Procter brands or we sell this service to the outside world, we love the number 2 player because they tend to be a little more hungry from a client perspective.
So one last question, and then we'll start.
I'm from China, and the P&G's market is very successful in China. Almost every family we use. But I think there's one not successful case, but like SK2 in China used to be very hot.
Mm-hmm.
You can see old women, busy at the counter. But I think 2 years ago, it was said, or maybe this rumor said, like there's some chemical not good. If you use for the skin.
Heavy metals.
Yes, something like that. But I because I used to be also the SK2 users, but it seems like there's no feedback from the P&G, or there's very small voice. So it's like SK2 as I sales drop dramatically in China or maybe in the Hong Kong, Asia. It just if it's you, what will you do? Because I think it's not so successful marketing event for this case, and there's a few cases for also similar case. I think it will be much better feedback.
Right. So now what you're articulating is how much we still have to go learn. Because remember I talked about advocacy before. What she's talking about is badvocacy. It's the opposite end of it's negative advocacy. And so if you don't know the story, SK2 is a facial cream, very, very expensive. You can buy it in a few Saks stores here in the United States, typically at about $300 a jar. It's a phenomenal product. We bought it a number of years ago. Almost a $400 million brand. I mean, pretty big brand, right? And really big in China. And a rumor started, substantiated by the Chinese government, interestingly, that said there were heavy metals in the product, and heavy metals, of course, are bad for your body. They did that because they tested some water that was near our plant, which was city water, that had heavy metals in it. Now we filtered for all that, so the product actually didn't have heavy metals, but the rumor started, and it spun out of control. And literally almost killed the brand. It's growing back today, but it's not anywhere near the level it was. So the question becomes, how do you handle that? How do you handle the negative side of advocacy? And my answer to you is, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. Are you familiar with what happened to Nestle 2 weeks ago? You guys been following this? What Greenpeace did to them? Oh boy, go online and go look at this. Greenpeace put a viral video out, and it's a Kit Kat commercial. Nestle makes Kit Kat, and it's a Kit Kat commercial, and it looks just like a regular Kit Kat commercial. I mean, you just swear as and as the guy off his environment, kind of invigorating his day, bites in to the Kit Kat, blood starts to drip out, and all of a sudden you hear a chainsaw, And then the next scene is cut to an orangutan sitting in a lone tree as they're cutting down the forest. And it's then goes on to say, tell Nestle to stop using palm oil from the forest so orangutans can keep their habitat. And this thing went viral. You know, bam. Nestle didn't know what to do. So they did what was instinctive. They threatened to sue. And they said, you're using our trademark and we're going to sue. And this got into social media. And Nestle's response accelerated the Greenpeace viral video, the Advocacy. It accelerated. It had the exact opposite effect. So companies are really struggling with this today. Would Nestle have been better to just shut up, let it play its course, and say, got it, it's a fringe group. You know, we consume 1/10 of 1/100th of 1/1,000,000% of the palm oil in the world. Why are you picking on us? We're going to ignore it. Did they take the right actions to try to respond to it? But did they take the right actions by threatening legal? All companies are struggling with this. And in this new social media space, nobody's got the answer. Nobody's got the answer. Nestle, I think, would argue today, we wouldn't do it the same way. It impacted their stock price. It got so severe it impacted their stock price. Go look this up online. It's and it literally just happened 2 weeks ago. I don't have the answer. So I know I don't want to get us off schedule. So thank you much for your time. I appreciate it.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.